And so in these proceeding clips, the section entitled Conor. And so in these proceeding clips, the section entitled Conor Mind Games, what you'll see is about 4 or 5 clips. No, I think it's about 6 clips. And basically, these clips depict the history of Conor in the UFC and how he employs psychological warfare and manipulation, and even in, you know, small instances, body language, at least for these clips, short instances. But just take notice, just look at how the narrator of the videos describes him and his tactics and his practices, and how they line up to my initial point in keeping the proper perspective on the fact that the UFC is a business first and foremost. Yes, they're in the business of promoting fights, actual fights. This is not the WWE, where it's a lot more entertainment inside the actual ring. All of the entertainment in the UFC is, of course, outside of that octagon, and it's leading up to building anticipation for the contest. But again, it's all entertainment. They're selling product in the octagon, they're selling product out of the octagon. So just keep that in mind. Enjoy the clips.
He angered Dustin Poirier, getting him to be more focused on smashing Conor than on sticking to a smart game plan.
A lot of times I would find myself like being angry at him or thinking about him. I'm not fighting him who he is. I'm fighting his style of fighting and what he does in the cage. So you're not fighting, all the talk and all that stuff. It'd be a different show if I could do it again.
After a long press tour, he got Jose Aldo so worked up that he came out stiff and frustrated. Which was exactly what Conor predicted and capitalized on.
I owe him inside one. If he makes that walk and if he is in the octagon, I feel every single movement I make will get an overreaction off of him because he's emotionally invested in it. There's too much in it for him. The whole country of Brazil, it's all piling on him. So I feel if I just go, he will react a million times too much. That's what I see the fight playing now. I feel him overreacting, overextending, and then being KO'd unconscious.
And in his last UFC fight, Conor goaded Eddie Alvarez into a boxing match.
I went in with a plan and stick to the plan. I think I paid for it. So,
what was the plan that you wanted to stick to?
I think it was more to kick and wrestle, not to box so much, not to throw so many hands.
It's important to recognize that all of these men had different emotional triggers. Poirier seemed to lose some confidence when Conor spoke about past fights where Poirier was wobbled. Aldo seemed to get most upset when Conor said that he was the king of Brazil, and Alvarez took offense to Conor saying that he was only a mediocre striker. Now, Conor did not have the benefit of interacting much with Khabib prior to this conference, except for that whole issue with the dolly, but in 30 minutes, Conor wisely hit as many points as he could, almost like he was taking a shotgun to Khabib's mental armor and seeing where he broke through, and hyping his partnership with the UFC.
Las Vegas, Nevada, the T-Mobile Arena, live on pay-per-view, UFC 229, in association with McGregor Sports and Entertainment and Proper 12 Irish Whiskey.
So in terms of making money, despite the fact that Khabib has historically not carried the trash-talking, ticket-selling phase by himself, I would say that Conor was hugely successful in that goal. It's Conor's second goal where things get interesting. Because if Conor can upset his opponent, he can take them out of their best performance, which he has done many times.
Why you come here? But 6 October, what you gonna do? This is not stomping on your head.
So first and foremost, the money. McGregor already holds 4 of the 5 best-selling pay-per-view slots in UFC history. After this Khabib fight, he's likely to hold 5 of 5 and to reset the record, as this is trending towards nearly 2 million pay-per-view buys. And it's not just because he's got impressive knockouts under his belt. It's because all of this drama garners attention. After all, you are watching this video and not one on Stipe Miocic, who can't even get a rematch despite a record-setting number of title defenses in the heavyweight division. But this time, Conor went beyond drama to other avenues of earning money for himself, selling his own brand of whiskey.
Proper 12! Proper Irish whiskey from a proper Irish...
So we're going to stick to analyzing how effective Conor was in executing his pre-fight game plan. And though he may sometimes look outlandish and crazy, Conor is very logical about pursuing his two main goals. He wants to make more money, and he wants to anger his opponent enough to disrupt their fight plan. And of course, have some fun while doing it.
And so we get to the actual fight. This next clip is a recap, about a minute long. And just want to hit on a few points here. And you'll notice Conor do his gorilla, aka what I call the Vince McMahon walk. Again, I grew up on wrestling, good old-fashioned wrestling. WWF turned to WWE, of course. And so the CEO of the WWE company is Vince McMahon, and he definitely had no problem placing himself right in the center of the fire that was sports entertainment. And so, you know, he would enter the ring, and he had this big, larger than life walk. He gesticulated a lot. He flailed his arms around, puffed his chest out, and you'll see that Conor does much of the same. Definite exaggeration, intentional, mind games. Clearly, we see he's the master of that in the preceding clips. Same thing with kissing the crowd. He's, again, the ultimate minstrel. He is the ultimate entertainer. He loves to appease the audience. Almost positive that he derives energy from it. Again, energy that he needs to carry him through this fight. I have no doubt about that. And then conversely, we have brother Nurmagomedov. I love this dude, man. I really do. You can see his focus, his demeanor, his tenor. He acknowledges his God, Allah. Again, very much to the point about that action. And yeah, he's ready for go time, straight up. And then you'll see, of note to me, Conor's recovery from that big right hand from Khabib. I ain't gonna lie, man, that dude has some strong calf muscles, quads, and he just has great balance and a great chin, cause he got mollywopped. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. And then of note also is Khabib's strategy. I think he worked it to perfection. He wore Conor down, and he wore Conor out. And of course, we know his signature move is the choke out, and what better way to ease the choke out success rate or improve the success rate than to wear your opponent down to where they're already breathing heavily and I want to say shallowly. So Khabib knew what he was doing. I mean, he definitely held his composure up until he just started to talk trash to Conor, I think in end of the third round, something like that. But yeah, that's what it was, man. The fight to end all fights. It was, some say lopsided, some say Conor did better than they thought he was going to do. Some say. I'll leave it at that.
Best fighters in the world going out there trying to kill each other. I've seen it happen in England at other shows. But that aside, let's talk about the fight, because it was incredible. It was an incredible performance by Khabib. He went out there. Conor had good takedown defense in the first round. Khabib took him down, used his legs to tie him over. He does that very well. But in the second round, it was Khabib time. Landed that overhand right and then started mauling him. This was the most dominant round for Khabib until he got the finish. He really punished Conor and really took him out of his element. Round 3, Conor came back, and he came back strong. I don't know if he won the round, but he landed some good shots and he was able to stop the takedowns. Of course, round 4, Conor looking a little more fatigued. Khabib being relentless with the takedowns, and he knew he had to get the takedown. On the feet, the fight was very close. On the ground, it wasn't. So Khabib knew, get the takedown. He did, took the back, yanked his neck off, and still, new champ. Well done, Khabib.
Alright, so we're going to do a brief analysis of the brawl, post-fight brawl, and what you'll see from these 3 short clips is Khabib taking care of business inside the octagon, and then allowing himself to emote. And so, up into the fight, through the fight, he was very much so composed. He was in control of his emotions. He did not allow his disdain for Conor to negatively impact his fight performance. And that's all you can do against a shucker and a jiver. You know what I'm saying? Stay on your game, handle your business. Shout out to White Noise, focus on the prize. And that's what he did. Having said that, once he did that, he let those emotions flow, man. And flow they did. And so, of course, you know, we see what happened. We know what happened by now. He did his best rendition of Russian Hawk Down. That dude was in the air. Now I know why they call him the Eagle, for sure. So, you know, I won't play the whole clip there. And then the second clip, you'll see. And what's really important about this clip to me is just symbolically what it meant. And what it the story it told of just how raw the wounds were that Conor opened up with his comments. You know, to him, it was just business. He was just selling the fight. But to people with a strong culture and strong heritage and with you know, high level of pride, you know, it's not just words, bro. You know, it's deeper than words. You know, sticks and stones may break my bones. You know, they say words will never hurt you, but yeah, the words themselves can't hurt, but the consequences of saying those words, absolutely. And so, again, get what you pay for. And again, back to the point about, you know, that analogy of IEDs being left after wartime is over. We have fans of both Conor and Khabib being residuals of Conor's loose lips. And we see fans who probably never knew each other prior to this engagement getting into fisticuffs and shouting matches and getting knocked out and, you know, all kind of stuff, man. Just all kind of foolishness, debauchery, and chaos, whatever. So, again, man, loose lips sink ships and cause rifts and all kind of ish. So, yeah. And then what you get from the third clip, short clip, just a different angle of the chaos inside the octagon. Again, just wanted to focus real quick on the brawl because it's just indicative of the raw emotions that Conor evoked willfully. Again, he knew what he was doing. He may not have known the depth and the gravity of it, but he knew what he was doing, man. And he's a rich man thereafter. I hope it's worth it. And so this brings us to one of my favorite parts of the video. I mean, I enjoy making the whole video. You know, I love this kind of thing. But we have the post-fight commentary, let's call it. Particularly in this case on ESPN. I think the Mike and Mike show, Trey Wingo, and then this gentleman who has a UFC show of his own. You'll hear his name in the clips. But basically, you'll hear in the video, you know, the question posed, was it really a bad night? as Dana White said it was. Did it really leave a black mark on the UFC? The fact that it was a very personal fight. The fact that, Conor, with his history of, shenanigans, you can call it, he really ratcheted it up this time, and he touched on some things that are generally hands off. Again, country, faith, family, friends. He indeed went for the jugular, and although I doubt that he drew blood, he absolutely awoke a sleeping giant, and that giant gave him the business, gave that man the blues, Bobby Blue Bland style. You'll hear him talk about the bus attack, and then we have the Dana White quote, it was the most disgusting day in UFC history. And then when I saw the clip, the dude didn't even look like he believed it himself as he was saying it. He has this sinister grin on his face, man, because he's the ringmaster. He's the P.T. Barnum. He's a salesman, and he does a mighty fine job of it. You can just trace the history, profit-wise, popularity-wise, over the course of the history of UFC, and you can just see how well he does at his job. But make no mistake about it, Dana White is not a disciplinarian. He's not a commissioner of any sorts. He's the president of the UFC company, and his job, first and foremost, is to make money for the owners. And how do you make money in the fight business? By selling fights. And how do you sell fights? By creating characters that people want to invest in and pay money to see perform their craft. Point blank, period. And then you'll have a few comments about who's really responsible. Again, we know what time it is. We can all say everybody has to own up to his own part in it, but by far and away, I place the blame at the feet of Dana White. Conor's he's a puppet, a very skilled puppet at what he does, but he's the golden boy. He can do no wrong. So it's like when you give somebody rope or a leash, if you give them a long leash, they're not going to be respectful and say, I probably shouldn't take this leash to the max. Nah, they're gonna take that thing to the max until they get jerked back by the neck. And that's what he did. Only his leash was damn near infinite. So yeah, that's what it is.
Horrible night it was for the UFC. It was really bad, really, really super awful. Was it really?
I mean, in the moment, and by the way, thank you for having me on again, guys. I appreciate it very much. In the moment, it was tough to watch. I would say as far as covering this sport is concerned, it was probably the worst night. You never want to see that. It reminded me of Riddick Bowe and Andrew Galata from many moons ago. Thankfully, it didn't turn into a huge brawl involving the fans and chairs being thrown and whatnot. But we can't be surprised. This was a very personal fight. A lot of things were said. A lot of things that, especially when it concerns Khabib Nurmagomedov, things were said that usually people don't talk about. Religion, his father, who he cares so much about, Dagestan, Chechnya, Russian politics. I mean, this wasn't your typical pre-fight build-up. And so after, this whole thing started in Brooklyn, of course, in April with the bus and the chairs being thrown and the dollies, Dana White said it was the most disgusting day in the history of the sport. Well, they used that footage to sell the fight. Conor was never reprimanded. So him saying this again now sort of falls on deaf ears. 6 months from now, if they do the rematch, I can assure you this footage will be used to sell that fight.
Staying outside the ring, after this settles down a bit, what do you think the fallout will be from fine, who gets the belt, and then when the rematch could be?
Yeah, so a lot of people afterwards were trying to compare this to the Malice at the Palace, and when David Stern suspended Ron Artest for 73 games, and they're counting on Dana to do the right thing and strip Khabib of the belt. I can assure you, none of that is going to happen. Again, people want to compare Dana White to Roger Goodell or David Stern or now Adam Silver. He is not that guy. He is Daniel Snyder. He is James Dolan. He is an owner, and he's going to do what's best for business. So he's not trying to set a moral standard here.
It's literally a blood sport. I mean, that's what it is. MMA reporter and the host of the Ariel Helwani MMA Show podcast joins us
talking about the madness that took place Saturday night. So he's going to get his purse. It'll be released, we believe, sometime soon. But here's the question, because you mentioned it. There was a lot of bad blood between these two for a while. There was the Conor McGregor thing going nuts where he threw a chair at the bus. And then as you alluded to, Errol, he went really personal with some of the language and leading up to this. That's got to be on Dana White at some point, right, too? I mean, he has to own that part of this, doesn't he?
Absolutely, and that's why, after the fight all yesterday, I mean, the talk online, the rhetoric, I've never seen this kind of passion, because this almost felt, truly, it felt like a holy war. I mean, I've seen some videos back home in Dagestan of some things that are kind of disturbing, talking about the aftermath of the fight. And, for Dana to say this was discussed, I mean, you saw this all happen, and no one stopped it from happening. And again, they used the footage. This was incredibly personal. Even afterwards, Khabib talking about, like, look, this guy talked about my religion. He talked about my father. Khabib still lives at home with his parents. He's married with 2 children, but the youngest child in that culture always stays at home. That's how much his parents mean to him. And, to call him a rat and things like that. Look, I've said this before. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite here, but I've said, like, all's fair in love and fight promotion. You could say what you want. This is a different kind of ball game. We're literally cage fighting here. So I'm not trying to necessarily reprimand Conor. I'm not trying to reprimand Khabib, but I will say that if you're going to sit here on this Monday and be like, this guy's to blame, that guy's to blame, guess what? They're all to blame.
All right, so right here, we're going to touch on very directly the business of the UFC and what it really boils down to. Not punches and kicks, but dollars and cents. And so what you'll hear in these couple of clips, I believe it's 3 clips, you'll hear Conor McGregor's payday discussed. You'll hear Joe Rogan discuss, or explain rather, how the UFC promotes a fight, namely a Conor McGregor fight. And then you'll hear some in-octagon chatter, chit-chat between Khabib and Conor. I think you'll enjoy it all. But keep in mind, the UFC, as you know by now, is a promotion company. What do they promote, you say? They promote fighting. How do they promote fighting, you ask? By trumping up, creating these characters. And what do they do with these characters? They make sure that they ingrain them into your psyche to the point where you either love them or hate them, but either way you feel very strongly, to the point where you either want to see them with their hand raised in victory or on the floor, the ground of the octagon, bruised, battered, bloodied. Either way, you paid your money to be ringside in the building or in front of a TV screen somewhere. So, having said that, let's get to it.
2 million pay-per-view buys. How much money could you stand to make if it did 2 million?
I know it's you. It's going to be over 2 million. Yeah, we're estimating around 3 to 3.5 million. I'd say I'll close in around the $50 million mark.
So he says $50 million. We also spoke to Dana White, and Dana White told us that if the pay-per-views sell well enough, he could be in the neighborhood of what he made for Mayweather-McGregor, which was around $100 million.
Yeah, financially, can he do Mayweather numbers? Can Conor do Mayweather numbers?
Of course he can. Is you just promote the holy fuck out of a fight. You travel the world. You promote the shit out of it. You scream at each other at press conferences. You do all that stuff for months and months and months, and those things sell like crazy.
If it's Conor McGregor.
Oh, big right hands landing from Nurmagomedov, who came into this fight unquestionably in the best shape of his life.
Conor's talking to him. I can't hear what he's saying, but he's getting tagged.
Well, that's Khabib talking, and he's not saying nice things.
Oh! 15 minutes in the books. We head to the championship rounds.
Grabbing. What did Khabib just say?
So these 2 clips don't really need, or actually just 1 clip, I combined them. They don't really need any setup. Basically they highlight the fact that Conor cheated during the match. this was pretty much universally agreed upon by critics and commentators and fellow UFC fighters, but not really poo-poo. You know, it was touched on, but I didn't really hear any disgust with it like you think you would in a sport based on honor and combat, and where, you know, people's lives are in each other's hands in that octagon, as you'll see in the clip. And also with these two combined clips about Conor cheating, what I wanted to go over is the fact that I believe, and this is just my contention, haven't heard anybody else mention this, but I believe that him cheating was also a part of psychological warfare. You know, anything to infuriate his opponent, you know, in this case Khabib, to irritate him, to annoy him to the point where he would get off his game, he would divert his focus from, you know, offense and defense onto, you know, I gotta watch this guy, or you know, now I gotta really unleash on this guy so I can end this fight earlier, or now I got a problem with the ref and I gotta keep one eye on the ref to make sure I point out that, you know, all of that foolishness that can happen with a weak-minded fighter, and has happened, as you saw in the preceding clips in the Conor mind game section. So again, psychological warfare is real, man. It's very real. It manifests itself in many ways, and again, Conor's masterful at it. Now, you know, some could break it down and you know, postulate that he just cheated because he was tired, and he was tired of getting his face beat in. And yeah, I'm sure there's truth to that. Nobody wants to get their face beat in. I got you. But in a sport that's based on, you know, honor and principle and discipline, you know, when somebody's desperate, man, desperate times call for desperate measures. And so part of desperation is to gain the upper hand again. You know, you're desperate because you no longer have the upper hand. And to get the upper hand, you do what you gotta. Point blank, period.
You guys were down there, you got the best seats in the house, you were right there. Something happened at the end of the third round. Do you know what Conor said to him? Because Khabib really lost his cool at the end of the third round. He was screaming with his corner, they were arguing, they were trying to calm him down. That was the catalyst, that's what started it.
Khabib was angry because Conor was grabbing Khabib's gloves. He was hooking against his gloves, he was doing it illegally, and Khabib said it to Herb Dean. He said he did it 3 times. That's what it was all about. That's why he was fired up.
Look at Conor, he was doing the old Conor tricks, grabbing the gloves, grabbing the fist, had his toes in the cage, illegal knee to the head. He was making it dirty. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying to win. No, so he was trying to get into his mind, and he did that.
You do what you got to do.
And so let me hit this point about psychological warfare, since that is the crux of the topic today. When you think about your personal life, because like I said, this translates over into our personal lives, I wanted to touch on 3 particular instances. One is corporate America, which I work in currently, sports, and then the book Win Friends and Influence People. So let's touch on corporate America briefly. So if you think about, and anybody who's in corporate America, I'm sure you can attest to this, can relate to it on whatever level. But you think about your interaction, and you could be either guilty of this or you could have observed this like me. I'm far enough removed from the tactics of corporate America to truthfully say that I don't engage in these tactics. I don't feel a need to. But again, neither here nor there. But if you think about how you have either manipulated relationships to move ahead, or you've observed that behavior in others, you've seen individuals in situations where they've taken advantage of their knowledge of body language and the messaging that it correlates, and you've seen them able to manipulate certain favors or to be able to network themselves into a position or into a world they hadn't prior to being a part of. Then you have what I call power plays, where you have individuals, and I've had this happen to me many times because of my rival support role, and so you have people play that proximity game with you, where they try to get all the way up in your face. They say, damn that personal space, that 3 feet. They don't regard that at all. They just go ahead and get to it until you can smell their breath and see the spit forming on the edges of their lips, corners of the lips. And yeah, they do that, and it's for a reason. It's because of whatever training they've had, you know, in school, or whatever videos they've seen on YouTube, or, you know, whatever a mentor shared with them about getting the upper hand, or asserting yourself, or being an alpha, or exuding a certain level of confidence. All of these things are part of psychological warfare. You know what I'm saying? It's premeditated, it's tactical, and it is results oriented. The result being you establishing your position with them. I don't want to say dominance, that's general. Whatever it is, whatever your intention is, because some people use it to play docile, or to play demure. Whatever they need to do, it's very primal in that way. And then you even have handshakes. You know, I've had people try to be very aggressive in their handshakes, men and women. You know, we'll touch on that dynamic in other videos too, but again, I just want you to pay attention, because it happens, malicious or not, it definitely happens, and the impact is felt. So we can go to eye contact, you know, and I'm just trying to replay instances in my mind as I share with you. You have an individual who tries to burn a hole through you because they've learned that eye contact is important, and it you know, the eyes are the windows to the soul, and you can really peer into somebody and understand somebody and see what somebody's made of, and if they are confident, and if they're not confident, you can attack. It's all psychological warfare, man. It's all a power play. You know what I'm saying? Over talking somebody, you know, being dismissive, all of these things, tactics, premeditated, very purposeful. So yeah, just be mindful and just understand how much a part of our lives it really is. And so when you think about sports, right, I don't think it takes a whole lot of thought or insight to see psychological warfare, and manipulation in play. Take for instance the amount of trash talking that takes place during a professional sporting event, and I'll focus on basketball because that's the sport that I pay the most attention to and enjoy the most. So you think about on that court, offense or defense, you know, you going down the court and you got somebody in your ear talking trash. They may have heard a story about you, or in this day and age they may have seen something online or whatever and saw that that was a trigger of yours, so they know they can tap into that to get you off of your game and disrupt your stats and disrupt your performance, and so they'll do that. Then you have the whole dynamic between the players and the referees, how they'll try to coax the referee into making a certain call in their favor, or they'll unnecessarily reprimand a coach, or a referee rather, excuse me, for a call that was the correct call, but because they again want to finesse it for the next time, they'll create doubt in the referee's mind. So all these things are at work, man. Again, malicious or not, that's not what I'm here to debate. I just want to point it out and enlighten you and encourage you to examine yourself, to see where you stand and to see if you really are okay with manipulating or deceiving somebody just to get what you want. And then if you think about, like I said, the book, or before I even go to the book, if you think about cheating in sports, now of course we already covered the fact that Conor McGregor cheated in his bout